All right, so the nose is something that we actually went into more detail than anything last week in the previous video. But there's still a lot to talk about. I feel like, and I think I mentioned this in the previous video, I feel like this is where we have the least forgiveness when we are making the attempt to draw a likeness. I'll repeat this again. I feel like with the eyes, there's a little bit of leeway. I think there's maybe like, I don't know, 5 to 8% forgiveness. If we're off a little bit, we can still manage to get a decent likeness. With the mouth, there's even more. I think that goes up to like maybe even like 10%. If like shapes are slightly off, we can still, from everything else, kind of gather who that's supposed to be. With the nose, however, I don't know. I don't know. This is a personal opinion, and I'm probably way off base, but I've just noticed when I'm looking at something and I'm realizing that the likeness is off, it's and then I'll notice it's probably in the nose. Uh, I don't know what that is. That's sculptural. That's painting, drawing for me. That's something that I've just personally noticed. And again, ears don't matter. I'm draw the same ears forever unless somebody has a really really specific ear. So what we did last week was we broke down a 6-plane nose. I'll just mark this here: 1, 2, and 2 for the sides of the bridge of the nose. 3 for the bridge of the nose, 4 for the septum, and then 5 and 6 for the nostrils. So this wasn't always the breakdown. I mentioned that last week. What we used to do is break down a 4-plane nose, and I'll show you really quickly. And it's really basic. I still think it's super helpful when trying to develop a quick construction. Oops, see, I'm already so used to doing it the other way. But the underplane was wall 1. We didn't break down the septum from the nostrils, and then everything else was the same. It was really rigid too. It's almost like if I took, I don't know, it's almost like a Kit Kat bar, if you think about it that way, or maybe like if a Kit Kat bar and a Toblerone had a baby. So the 6-plane nose, or the 6-plane construction of the nose, I think is a little bit more difficult. It takes a little bit more time, and it takes a little bit more care and attention when we're doing it. But I think in the long run, the more attentive we are here, the less we'll have to do after, right? So I do break down the bridge of the nose into 2 basic shapes. So I have one for the actual nasal bone, and then another bump out for the bulbous end of the nose. Again, the septum. So this is all basically review from last week. The septum, and this can go down to the nose line. Again, it's something that we need to pay attention to. Do the nostrils go lower than the septum of the nose, or does the septum go lower? So, like for instance, here on our construction, I have the septum going lower, but I'll draw one where the nostrils go lower. So this is more of a like pixie nose, or like an upturned nose. Bring the nostrils out and then beat back up. A lot of times we'll see the Cupid's bow, and if that's strong enough, that might even cover some of the far nostril. And then for here, again, this is just a soft transition. So this is marking 2 points. This is the inside of the eye socket, and then this is also marking the bridge of the nose. And then from here, it's a soft transition as well over the cheek. So I'm not thinking about skull shape here. I'm actually thinking about like the fat over the skin, over the fat, over the muscle. So I round it out this way, even though it's straight on that side. So that's my breakdown. And then like really all we have to do to finish this off is just draw in our nostrils, plural, and then round out the pinch of the nostril outside. So here's the thing though, there's a lot of variation when it comes to the nose, and I think this is why it's so crucial to the likeness, because I feel like there's more variation in the nose than there is with the eyes or the mouth. I mean, there's plenty of variation with those two if we're talking about like angles, pitch, or just placement of things. So when I am designing or inventing a face, and I'm at the nose, something I always like to think about is a good character creator from a video game, whether that's like a Bethesda game like Fallout or Skyrim. Well, Skyrim, it's pretty dated, but technically so is Fallout. Or like even The Sims. The Sims has a pretty decent. I don't know. I've never played The Sims. My girlfriend's playing Sims right now, and I've watched her on the character creator. Some of you guys might love doing character creators. Some of you might not. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Sometimes I get really weird and crazy with my designs. Sometimes I get idealistic. And sometimes, in the rare cases, I actually try to make it look like me. But it turns out most video games don't allow you to make characters as fat as me. So, let me do this too while I have that front view. I'll do a quick side view as well. It's going to be very quick. It might be steep. It doesn't matter. Okay, so when we're talking about variation, I'll change the color too so I can just point certain things out. There's a lot to think about. So I'm thinking about the width of the actual base of the nose, the nostrils. I'm thinking about, again, the placement of the septum, how high or low that is. I need to think about the placement of the nostrils, how high or low that is. I can think about how dilated or how large or small or narrow the nostrils are. On the side view, I can think about how high or low the tip of the nose is going to be. Is it upturned nose? Is it downturned nose? I can think about the angle of the bridge of the nose. Do I have like a S curve, or is it a C curve in to the end? Or do I have more like an extreme bump or anything? So there's just so much variation. Another thing to think about is just the overall length of the nose. So from the base of the keystone to the tip of the nose, how long is that? I can think about how wide the tip of the nose is. There's just so much variation when we're thinking about this. So, or when we're designing, and all of these things, I think we should be very considerate of. Of course, there's a lot of variation based on like ethnicity. So that's another thing to consider when we're designing. When you're designing a character, to at least have an idea of what you're doing. Most artists, like let's be realistic, most artists, especially if you look at like comic books, it's the same like idealized face that everybody draws. So I was born in '82. I'm older than all of you, I'm sure. But I remember like in the early '90s when the comics had a big boom. And I look back at some of my favorite artists. Even now, when I look back at them, like Jim Lee, you look at all of his designs for all of his characters, and they all had the same features. Especially if you look at like the X-Men, if you look at like Rogue, Storm, and Psylocke, they all had like idealized European style faces, which was kind of crazy. So I think that's an important thing to think about when you're considering or when you're creating a character is, at least be mindful of who you're drawing and who you're creating. So, but yeah, there's so much to think about when drawing the nose. So let's try this. Let's draw a few different noses. And I'm not drawing anything specific. Again, I'm just kind of, I'm not drawing anything specific. I'm just drawing from my head. So I can do a dramatically upturned nose. Let's actually change this angle. So I'll have it kind of like a cutesy pixie nose. I feel like noses are something that people really struggle with, depending on how long this person's been drawing. Some people not so much, but when I'm drawing, this is not something. I shouldn't say that right now. I can do let's do dramatic like downturn nose. So we're not even going to see nostrils on this. You can draw a more bulbous, rounder, slightly wider nostrils. So I also want to think about like the width and the transition of the bridge of the nose every time you're drawing. So for some people, it can be not dramatic, but a pretty steep shift from the bridge of the nose down to the cheeks. For some people, it's a really soft transition, and it might not be even that far pronounced. So again, all things to consider when we're drawing noses. Like I was saying at the beginning, this is one of the only facial features that we really developed in the first week. So there's not really all that much to add here, aside from like adding the nostrils. And that's it, really. So that's kind of the beauty of using this construction. It leaves minimal work left for developing the feature. So that's kind of it for the nose. Let's move on to the mouth.